This video is about the single mom misplaced her keys, and a rich stranger returned them with a flirting note. If this story touches your heart, please mention where you are watching from in the comments. Please like the video and share your thoughts in comments. The rain tapped softly against the windows of Ella Hart's small apartment, creating a soothing rhythm that contrasted sharply with the chaos of her morning routine. Sunlight struggled to peek through the gray clouds, casting a muted glow over the cluttered living room, where toys lay scattered across the floor like fallen leaves in the autumn breeze. The aroma of burnt toast wafted through the air as Ella hurried about, a sense of urgency propelling her into the next task. Today was the first day back at work after her brief maternity leave, and she was determined to make a good impression, despite the whirlwind of emotions that accompanied this new chapter in her life. "Mama, I can't find my dinosaur," her 4-year-old son, Oliver, shouted from his room. His voice was high-pitched and tinged with panic, a sound Ella had grown accustomed to over the years. Her heart tugged at the sound of his distress, a reminder of how quickly he was growing up. "Just give me a second, sweetheart," she called back, knowing full well that the dinosaur was likely buried beneath a mountain of stuffed animals or wedged between his bed and the wall. But first, she needed to find her keys. The jangly, colorful set that had become a part of her daily routine was nowhere to be found. As she rifled through the clutter on the kitchen counter, a mix of school schedules, grocery lists, and half-empty coffee mugs, frustration bubbled within her. Life as a single mom had presented challenges she never anticipated. The whirlwind of responsibilities seemed to grow heavier each day, especially since her husband left 2 years ago, leaving her to navigate the complexities of raising Oliver on her own. "Why can't you just stay still for 1 second?" she muttered under her breath, a mix of self-reproach and exhaustion. It was Oliver's fault that she was running late. It was just the reality of her life. "Mommy," he whined again, this time with an edge of desperation. "I need my dinosaur for show and tell. Please hurry." Ella glanced at the clock hanging on the wall, its face seeming to mock her as the minute hand ticked relentlessly forward. She spotted a pile of jackets on the coat rack and threw her hands into the pocket of the last one. Nothing but old receipts and a crumpled snack wrapper. "Oliver," she called, trying to keep her frustration in check. "Can you help me look?" There was a moment of silence before he emerged from his room, his eyes wide and determined. "Okay, but I have to find T-Rex." He joined the search, and together they combed through the living room, Oliver's small hands diving into places Ella never thought to check. Just as Ella was about to give in to the overwhelming desire to cry, a soft jingle caught her attention. She turned and saw Oliver triumphantly holding up a small, plastic dinosaur. "Found him," he shouted, his face lighting up with joy. Ella couldn't help but smile at her son's excitement. "Great job, buddy. Now let's find Mommy's keys so we can leave." They resumed the search, and as Ella dug through the cushions of the couch, she felt the familiar dread of being late settle in her stomach. "I really need to do better," she whispered to herself, trying to push away the spiraling thoughts of inadequacy. Finally, just as she was about to give up, there they were, glinting in the sunlight that had finally broken through the clouds, laying innocently on the kitchen counter beneath a pile of mail. "Found them," she exclaimed, holding the keys up like a trophy, her heart flooding with relief. "Now we can go." The rush of excitement in Oliver's eyes mirrored her own as they gathered their things and headed out into the drizzling morning. The cool air enveloped them as they stepped outside, the world around them still waking up, the streets glistening with rain. "Look, Mama, the clouds are like cotton candy." Oliver pointed excitedly at the sky, his small hand clutching tightly to his dinosaur. Ella chuckled, taking a moment to appreciate the innocence of his imagination. "Yes, they are. Just like cotton candy, she agreed, squeezing his shoulder gently. She marveled at how quickly he was growing, how much he needed her now, yet one day he would be off on his own. As they approached the car, a sleek black sedan pulled up beside them, the engine humming softly as the driver rolled down the window. Ella's heart skipped a beat as she caught sight of the man behind the wheel. He was striking, with tousled dark hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to hold a world of secrets. "Excuse me," he called out, his voice smooth and rich like dark chocolate. "I think you dropped something." He held up a keychain that looked all too familiar, her heart racing as the reality set in. Her keys. "Oh my goodness, thank you." Ella rushed over, extending her hand to receive the keys. "I thought I lost them forever." She trailed off, momentarily distracted by the way he studied her, those blue eyes intense and curious. "Marco," he said, flashing a disarming smile that made her stomach flutter. "I saw you drop them in front of the cafe. I wasn't sure if they were yours, but—" "Ella," she introduced herself, trying to suppress the sudden blush that crept across her cheeks. "I'm so grateful, really. You just saved me from a complete meltdown." "Glad to help," he replied, his gaze lingering on her a moment longer than necessary. The air between them crackled with an unspoken tension, a spark of something that felt both thrilling and unnerving. "And this little guy," he said, nodding toward Oliver, who was peeking out from behind his mother's leg, eyes wide with curiosity. "This is my son, Oliver," Ella said, her tone a mix of pride and protectiveness. "We were just on our way to show and tell. He needs his T-Rex." "Ah, a dinosaur enthusiast," Marco said, flashing another smile that was infectious. "I remember being obsessed with dinosaurs when I was his age. Maybe he can teach me a thing or two." Oliver beamed, stepping out from behind his mother. "I can. He's a T-Rex, and T-Rexes are the best because they roar really loud." Marco laughed, the sound warm and inviting. "A mighty roar indeed. I bet you're going to impress all your friends at school today." Ella couldn't help but feel a flutter of pride as she watched her son come out of his shell, engaging with this handsome stranger. There was something about Marco that felt safe yet exciting, a juxtaposition of the ordinary and the extraordinary that sent her heart racing. "Thank you again for returning my keys," she said, feeling the need to steer the conversation back to the practical. "You really saved the day. Consider it my good deed for the week," he quipped, then took a step closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. "And maybe, if you're feeling adventurous, we could meet again. I'd love to hear more about your little son's dinosaur knowledge over coffee." Ella's heart raced. Coffee with a stranger, no, a captivating man who had just come to her rescue. The thought made her pulse quicken, and she felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Was she really ready to step back into the world of dating? Could she juggle motherhood and the unknown truths of romance? "I'll think about it," she said, her voice a touch breathless, as Oliver tugged at her hand, oblivious to the chemistry crackling in the air. "Cool," Marco said, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "I'll hold you to that, Ella." Ella nodded, feeling a smile stretch across her lips as she turned to Oliver, who was now bouncing on his toes, eager to get to school. As they walked toward the car, she stole a glance back at Marco, who was watching them, a knowing smile playing on his lips. It was just a pair of lost keys, but in that moment, Ella felt the stirrings of something she hadn't felt in years, a flicker of possibility, of hope, and perhaps, just perhaps, a hint of romance that could blossom amidst the chaos of her life. With the clouds dispersing and the sun finally breaking through, the world felt a little brighter. As Ella settled into her car and buckled Oliver into his booster seat, she couldn't shake the memory of Marco's striking blue eyes from her mind. What had just happened? A minor incident involving lost keys had spiraled into a fleeting connection that felt electric, yet somehow terrifyingly real. She directed her thoughts toward Oliver, who was busy rearranging his dinosaur collection in the backseat. "What's the first thing you're going to tell your friends today?" she asked, trying to keep her tone light and cheerful. She wanted nothing more than to engage with him, to redirect her mind from the stranger who felt like a whimsical daydream. "They're gonna be super jealous of my T-Rex," he replied, his eyes shining with pride. "And I'll tell them how he roars and runs really fast, like this." He threw his arms out wide and began to imitate the stomping of a dinosaur, a wide grin spreading across his face. Ella couldn't help but laugh, her heart swelling with affection for her imaginative little boy. "Well, it sounds like you have a great story ready to go. Just remember, you can't use all your best material at once. Save some for later," she teased, shooting him a playful wink through the rearview mirror. Oliver giggled, his laughter dancing through the car like music. "Okay, Mommy, I'll keep my coolest T-Rex facts a secret for the next show and tell." As they drove through the rain-slicked streets, Ella's mind drifted back to Marco. She couldn't recall the last time a man had made her feel this way, excited, nervous, hopeful. Thoughts of coffee with him danced tantalizingly in the back of her mind, refusing to settle down. Was it foolish to even consider it? She focused on the task at hand, navigating the traffic while Oliver babbled about dinosaurs and his friends at school. "Mommy, do you think I'll be a paleontologist when I grow up?" he asked earnestly, his brows furrowing in concentration. "Of course, sweetheart. You can be anything you want. If you want to study dinosaurs, you'll be the best paleontologist ever," she assured him, her voice filled with warmth. "Just remember, you have to love learning. It's the most important part." Oliver nodded wisely, though Ella could see the wheels of imagination turning in his head, already dreaming of adventure rather than studying. The rest of their drive passed in a flurry of T-Rex facts and dinosaur roars, and before she knew it, they were pulling up to the school. "Here we are," Ella declared, turning off the engine. "Ready to impress your friends?" "Ready?" Oliver beamed, jumping out of the car as soon as she opened the door. He rushed towards the school entrance, his little legs moving quickly as he clutched his toy dinosaur tightly to his chest. Ella couldn't help but smile as she followed behind, her heart full of pride. After helping him with his backpack and giving him a quick hug, she watched him run into the building. Just as she turned to walk back to her car, her phone buzzed in her pocket. Pulling it out, she found a message from her best friend, Sarah, asking if they could meet for lunch. Ella contemplated the invitation. Sarah had always been her sounding board, the one she turned to when life felt overwhelming. Yet today felt different. She needed to process the unexpected flutter of excitement spinning within her thanks to a man she barely knew. As she stepped into her car, she hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen. Should she share her encounter with Marco? Would Sarah understand this uncharacteristic spark of interest? Just then, the sound of a knock against her window jolted her from her thoughts. Ella looked up to find Marco standing there, a casual smile on his face, seemingly unbothered by the light drizzle that had returned. Her breath caught in her throat, a mix of surprise and amusement coursing through her. "I hope I'm not interrupting," he said, leaning against the car, the rain creating a soft backdrop to their unexpected reunion. "I just wanted to make sure you really found your keys this time." "Marco," she exclaimed, her voice a mixture of shock and delight. "I didn't expect to see you again so soon. I figured I'd better check on you, just in case you had another key emergency," he said, his playful tone easing her initial surprise. "But really, I wanted to know if you thought about that coffee." Ella felt her heart race. Was this really happening? "You're persistent," she replied, trying to keep her tone light despite the rush of emotions. "I suppose that's a good quality in a potential coffee companion." Only in coffee companions, he said, leaning closer, his eyes sparkling with mischief. But seriously, I'm a firm believer that good conversations can happen over a great cup of coffee, and you seem like someone worth getting to know. Ella felt a blush creeping into her cheeks again, a mix of pleasure and bashfulness. I'm flattered, she said, trying to find the right words. But I'm a single mom and my life is pretty hectic. Trust me, I get hectic. I run a company which, let's just say, can be a challenge on its own, he said. But I don't let that stop me from making time for people who interest me. You do interest me, Ella. His words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Ella felt a flutter in her chest, the kind of spark she hadn't felt in years. In that moment, she let herself imagine for just a second what it would be like to say yes, to allow herself the freedom of pursuing something new and exciting. I could use a little adventure, she said, her voice softer than she intended. But I need to think about it. My life isn't exactly simple. Adventures are rarely simple, Marco replied, his gaze steady and sincere. But they're always worth it. Just think about it. I'll be at the same cafe tomorrow at 10 if you decide to join me. Okay, she said, her heart racing. I'll think about it. Great, he said, his smile widening. I'll hold you to that. And if you don't show up, I'll assume you've been eaten by a T-Rex. He laughed, and the lightness of his laughter mixed with the rain around them made her feel lighter too. Ella chuckled, warmth blooming within her. I promise I'll try not to let that happen. Good, he replied, his eyes crinkling in a way that made her heart flutter. I'll see you tomorrow then, Ella. I'll be waiting. With a final wave, he stepped back, his hands tucked casually into his pockets as he walked away. Ella watched him go, a rush of emotions swirling within her, hope, excitement, and a hint of fear. She couldn't deny the connection they had shared, nor the thrill of possibly exploring something new. As she slid back into her car, she felt a shift in her heart, a whisper of change that had been long dormant. Maybe this was the beginning of something. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to reclaim pieces of herself that had been lost in the chaos of motherhood and responsibility. Taking a deep breath, she opened her phone and typed a quick response to Sarah, letting her know she would meet for lunch after all. She could use her best friend's advice, but today, something felt different. Today, something felt possible. Ella spent the rest of the day in a daze, her mind flickering between the mundane tasks of single motherhood and the thrill of her unexpected encounter with Marco. The air in her apartment felt alive with possibility, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting for her to take a leap into the unknown. She managed to get through work emails, prep dinner, and help Oliver with his homework. But every task was punctuated by thoughts of his blue eyes and that intoxicating smile. After tucking Oliver in for the night, she sank onto the couch, feeling the weight of the day settle in. The soft glow from the lamp illuminated her surroundings, casting a cozy warmth that felt comforting yet suffocating. She picked up her phone and stared at Marco's message from earlier, a simple invitation to coffee. Why did it feel like so much more? The ticking of the clock became amplified in the silence, each second a reminder of her hesitation. She deliberated, fingers hovering over the screen, weighed down by the reality of her life. A single mom, busy, tired, constantly juggling responsibilities. But a voice inside her whispered that she deserved more than just surviving. She deserved to live. Okay, Ella, she muttered to herself, shaking her head as if the motion could shake off her doubts. You can do this. With a newfound resolve, she began typing. Hey Marco, it's Ella. I've thought about coffee, I'm in. See you tomorrow at 10. She hit send before she could second-guess herself, and a rush of exhilaration coursed through her veins, chased by an undertow of anxiety. Would he really be there? What would they talk about? Mommy. Oliver's voice broke through her thoughts, and she turned to see him standing sleepily in the doorway, clutching his trusty T-Rex toy. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Ella asked, concern etching lines across her forehead. "I had a bad dream," he said, his voice shaky. "Can I sleep with you?" Ella's heart melted at the sight of her little boy, so brave yet so vulnerable. "Of course, buddy, come on." She patted the space next to her. As he climbed into bed beside her, Ella wrapped her arms around him, breathing in the familiar scent of soap and the sweet fragrance of childhood innocence. "Do you want to tell me about your dream?" she asked softly. He shook his head, snuggling closer. "No, I just want to be with you." Ella smiled, her heart swelling with affection. "I'm here, Oliver. I'm right here." She felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude wash over her, knowing that despite her fears and uncertainties, their bond was unshakable. As she settled down, her mind drifted back to Marco. What if he turned out to be someone special? A flicker of hope ignited within her. Perhaps this was the beginning of something beautiful, a chance to weave a new narrative into the tapestry of her life. The next morning arrived with a hint of sunshine peeking through the remnants of gray clouds. Ella found herself standing in front of her closet, the familiar wave of indecision washing over her. She had chosen, uncharacteristically, to wear a pair of dark jeans and a soft, cream-colored sweater that hugged her curves just right, a light floral scarf tied around her neck. It was a small gesture towards feeling more confident. "Mommy, do I look like a dinosaur?" Oliver called from the living room, proudly displaying a dinosaur t-shirt that had seen better days. "You look amazing, my little paleontologist," she replied, grinning as he twirled around, the shirt flaring out like a cape. "Can I come with you?" he asked, his big brown eyes sparkling with hope. Ella hesitated, the reality of being a single mom pulling at her heartstrings. "Not this time, buddy. This is just a quick coffee with a friend. But I promise when I get back, we can play with your dinosaurs, okay?" "Okay," he shouted, already distracted by his toys, and Ella felt a pang of guilt for wanting to carve out time for herself. But she pushed it aside, reminding herself that a little adventure wouldn't make her a bad mom. It might even make her a better one. After a quick breakfast, she kissed Oliver goodbye, slipping out into the crisp morning air with a mix of excitement and nerves swirling in her stomach. The cafe was just a few blocks away, her pace quickening as she approached the familiar spot. As she crossed the threshold of the cafe, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped her, instantly calming her racing heart. She scanned the room, searching for Marco. There he was, sitting at a small table by the window, his posture relaxed yet attentive, his eyes scanning the crowd until they locked onto her. He stood as she approached, a smile breaking out across his face that made her forget her nerves. "You made it," he said, his voice warm and inviting. "I was starting to think I'd have to rescue you again." Ella laughed, the tension in her shoulders easing. "I'm here, aren't I?" "True, and you look amazing." His gaze roamed over her, lingering just a moment too long on her scarf, and heat flooded her cheeks. "Thank you," she replied, trying to sound nonchalant as they both settled into their seats. "So, I guess this is where we talk dinosaurs." Marco chuckled, leaning back in his chair, clearly at ease. "We can definitely start there. I could use a refresher on T-Rex facts." Ella felt herself relax further, the casual banter flowing naturally between them. They talked about everything: Oliver's obsession with dinosaurs and Marco's childhood fascination with space. He shared stories about his travels and his relentless ambition to build his company, and she found herself captivated by the passion in his voice. "Sometimes I think I'm more in love with the idea of adventure than the adventure itself," he confessed, his eyes sparkling with a hint of mischief. "But it's worth it when I meet interesting people along the way." Ella felt her heart race at the implication, the chemistry between them palpable. Interesting people, she echoed, a playful glint in her eyes. Like single moms who are hopelessly lost in the chaos of life. Exactly, he said, leaning in slightly, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Lost but still full of surprises. Ella's breath caught in her throat, the weight of his gaze sending a shiver down her spine. She felt an undeniable pull toward him, an attraction that was both exhilarating and terrifying. What if I'm too much chaos for you to handle? She teased, trying to mask her vulnerability with humor. Chaos is my middle name, he replied with a grin. And besides, I'm not looking for perfection, just someone genuine. The sincerity in his voice struck a chord deep inside her, and for the first time in a long while, Ella felt a flicker of hope blossom within her. Maybe she could allow herself the chance to explore this connection. As their coffee cups emptied, the conversation flowed effortlessly, laughter punctuating their exchanges. The world around them blurred. It was just the two of them, caught in a bubble where time seemed to stand still. Ella, Marco said, his voice lowering as he leaned closer, can I be honest with you? There's something about you that's incredibly refreshing. I've spent so much time focused on work that I forgot how nice it is to connect with someone on a deeper level. She met his gaze, feeling the intensity of his words. I'm glad I could bring that out in you, she replied, her heart racing at the implications. It's been a while since I felt like more than just a mom. You're more than just a mom, he said, his eyes earnest. You're an incredible woman, and I'd love to get to know you even better if you're open to it. Ella felt a wave of warmth wash over her at his words, the sincerity in his tone wrapping around her like a comforting embrace. I'd like that, she said softly, feeling a mixture of excitement and fear at the prospect of what lay ahead. They continued to talk, each word weaving a tapestry of connection between them, each laughter echoing with the promise of something deeper. Time slipped away, the outside world fading into a distant hum as they lost themselves in each other's company. Eventually, they both checked their watches, reality crashing back in as Ella realized she had to leave soon to pick Oliver up from school. I guess we should wrap this up, she said reluctantly, sadness creeping into her voice. Marco's expression shifted slightly, his smile dimming. Yeah, I suppose we have to face the real world again. As they stood to leave, Ella felt a flutter of uncertainty. So what now? Is this just a one-time coffee? Not if I can help it, he said, his voice low and steady. I'd love to see you again. How about dinner this weekend? I promise I'll keep the chaos to a minimum. Ella's heart soared at the invitation, a hopeful smile breaking across her face. Dinner sounds wonderful. Great, he replied, his eyes sparkling as they exchanged contact information. I'll text you the details. As they walked out of the cafe, Ella felt the warmth of his presence beside her. Ella stepped outside, the cool air greeting her like an old friend. Suddenly, the chaos of motherhood felt like a distant memory, replaced by the exhilarating flutter in her stomach, something she hadn't experienced in years. Marco walked beside her, his presence both grounding and uplifting, like a steady pulse in the midst of her whirlwind life. I can't believe how long it's been since I've had a conversation like that, she admitted as they strolled down the street, the sun breaking through the clouds, painting the world in brighter hues. It's like I forgot what it felt like to actually connect with someone. Marco flashed a warm smile, his eyes shimmering with understanding. It's easy to forget when you're caught up in the daily grind, but I think that's what makes moments like these even more special. They remind us of what we're missing. Ella felt her cheeks flush at the sincerity of his words. She was grateful for his ability to see beyond her responsibilities, beyond the chaos of being a single mom. It was refreshing. You're right. I've been so focused on being a good mom that I forgot to be a person too. Being a good mom is important, Marco said, his voice low and serious. But you deserve to be happy too, Ella. You deserve to have your own life, your own interests, and your own joys. She stopped walking, turning to face him, feeling her heart race at the intensity of his gaze. You really think so? Yes, he replied, stepping closer, the air around them thick with unspoken emotions. You're an incredible woman, juggling so much, and yet you still shine. It's admirable. Ella's breath caught in her throat. There was something so genuine about Marco that made it easy to open up. It's just hard sometimes. I worry that I'm not doing a good enough job, not just as a mom, but as a person. It's exhausting. That's perfectly normal, Marco said, his voice soothing. Life is chaotic for everyone, but that doesn't mean you have to face it alone. You have Oliver, and you have a network of friends. And now you have me, at least if you'll let me stick around. The soft teasing in his tone made her smile, a sense of warmth enveloping her. Okay, fair point. You're definitely not going anywhere now that you've put it like that. As they resumed walking, the conversation flowed easily, their shared laughter echoing down the street. They discussed everything from childhood dreams to favorite movies, discovering their mutual love for adventure films and a shared obsession with coffee shop pastries. Cinnamon rolls are my weakness, Marco confessed, his eyes gleaming with mischief. I could probably eat them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Mine too, Ella exclaimed, the bond between them tightening like a warm embrace. I actually had to hide them from Oliver, or he would have eaten the entire batch before I managed to get a bite. Marco laughed, the sound rich and contagious. Now that's a parenting tactic I can get behind. Hide the good stuff. As they reached the corner where they had to part ways, Ella felt a twinge of reluctance. Well, this is where I say goodbye until our dinner date, she said, her heart feeling heavy. I think I'll just have to hold you to that promise, Marco replied, his smile softening as he leaned against a lamppost. But I'm not ready to say goodbye just yet. Can I walk you to your car? Ella hesitated for a moment. She wanted to prolong the connection they had forged. Sure, I'd like that. They turned to walk together again, and as they approached her car, Ella's thoughts drifted to Oliver. I should probably get back soon. I promised him we'd have a dinosaur adventure today. Dinosaur adventures are crucial, Marco replied, a glimmer of amusement dancing in his eyes. What's on the agenda? Well, Ella said, her mind flickering with ideas. We're going to build a dinosaur habitat out of cardboard boxes. It's his favorite activity right now because he can paint it any color he wants, and it makes him feel like a paleontologist on a mission. I love that. Sounds like a fun project, Marco said, clearly intrigued. Do you think I could get an invite to that event sometime? Ella chuckled at the thought. You'd have to get approved by the T-Rex first, but I think he might like you if you bring cinnamon rolls. Challenge accepted, Marco replied, his eyes sparkling. I'll bring a dozen next time. As they reached her car, Ella fished out her keys, glancing sideways at Marco. I can't believe we talked like we knew each other for years. You're easy to talk to. I could say the same about you, he replied, his expression sincere. I feel like I've known you forever. There's a warmth about you that draws people in. Ella felt her heart flutter at the compliment, but she forced herself to keep her expression neutral. Well, I try my best to be friendly. Yes, but there's a difference between being friendly and being genuine, he said, taking a step closer. And you're definitely the latter. An electric silence hung between them, and Ella felt her pulse quicken. Thank you, she said softly. That means a lot. I mean it, Marco replied, his gaze steady. And if you're open to it, I'd like to keep exploring this connection we have, maybe over that dinner. Ella's stomach twisted with excitement and something akin to fear. I'd like that too, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But I need to be upfront with you, Marco. It's not just me anymore. There, S. Oliver to consider. Of course, he said, his expression serious but warm. I respect that. I'd never want to overstep, but I think it's wonderful that you're raising him on your own, and I'd love to get to know both of you if you allow me. Ella felt a rush of affection for him in that moment, a genuine warmth that made her believe he could be different. Okay, let's see how this goes, she said, smiling shyly. Perfect, he said, his smile widening. I'll text you the details, and we can figure out a time that works for you. Sounds like a plan, Ella replied, feeling a flutter of anticipation. She opened her car door, turning back to face him as she settled into her seat. Thank you for today, Marco. It was really nice. It was, he agreed, his eyes softening. And thank you for allowing me to share a part of your day. I'll be thinking about our dinosaur habitat plans. Ella laughed, feeling light and giddy as she watched him step back. You better bring your A game. Count on it, he said, giving her a playful salute before turning to walk away. As she drove off, Ella couldn't shake the feeling that something beautiful was beginning to unfurl in her life. The connection with Marco felt vibrant and real. He made her feel seen, not just as a mother, but as a woman with dreams and desires. And as she headed home, the road stretched before her like a new adventure, lined with the fading shadows of the past and bright possibilities for the future. She could hear Oliver's laughter in her ears, the sound of his joy lighting up her heart as she imagined their afternoon spent creating a world of dinosaurs. Knowing she had something to look forward to, dinner with Marco, and a new chapter unfolding in her life, made the chaos feel a little less overwhelming. As she parked the car and entered her apartment, the warmth of her son's smile greeted her, and she thought about her own growing happiness. Maybe, just maybe, she was on the brink of something wonderful, a chance to embrace not just motherhood but the fullness of life itself.